and a warm welcome to everybody attending the EPC election monitor event this morning. Today, we will analyze the elections held in Poland this Sunday, elections which many observers described as Poland's most important since the fall of communism and vital for its future in the European Union. Indeed, with war raging in neighboring Ukraine, and we are also witnessing other crises that at the EPC here also we refer it as perma-crisis, Brussels and Washington have been watching the vote closely. During its 2 terms, and I think it's not a secret that during its 2 terms, Poland's ruling party, Law and Justice, PiS, has experienced tensions with Brussels, primarily due to controversial judicial reforms that led to a freezing of funds by the European Union. According to the exit polls, Poland's opposition parties appear to have secured a solid victory, signaling a potential shift both in Poland and in the European Union. The exit polls, which has around 2% margin of error, was released immediately after voting ended at 9 p.m. on Sunday, yesterday. So the PiS party, Law and Justice Party, has secured 36.8% support, followed by the centrist Civic Coalition with 31.6%. Center-right, a third party with 13%, and the left with 8.6%, and the far-right Confederation with 6.2%. That was a lower percent that was apparently also expected by many observers. It also worth mentioning that a referendum, which was by many also assessed rather controversial, was also held in Poland at the same day yesterday. Voters were asked 4 questions regarding the approval of the privatization of state-owned enterprises, an increase in the retirement age, and the admission of immigrants under the EU's relocation mechanism. However, the exit polls suggest that not enough people voted for it to be valid. So why are these elections so important for the European Union and its future? How will the election results impact Poland's democratic development and relations with strategic partners? And what are the implications, and how might it influence the balance of power in the lead up to the next year's European Union elections? These are some of the questions that we will be discussing with our speakers, whom I am pleased to introduce to our audience. Dear audience, I would like to introduce Maria Skóra, Research Associate at Institut for European Politik. Thank you so much, dear Maria, for joining us this morning. I would like to introduce Monika, Associate Professor of Political Science at the Polish Academy of Sciences. Thank you so much, dear Monika, for joining us and finding time in your very busy schedule. And last but definitely not the least, let me introduce Tomasz Bielecki, EU and NATO correspondent, Deutsche Welle Polish section, and Gazeta Wyborcza. Thank you so much, dear Tomasz, for joining us this morning. And my name is Teona Lavrelashvili. I'm policy analyst and coordinator of the EPC task force on the future of the enlargement, and I'm very happy to moderate this discussion. Our audience, as always, of course, has the opportunity to submit written questions using the Q&A box. Please send your questions also throughout the event, throughout the conversation, and I will ensure that they will reach our speakers. So, dear speakers, once again, welcome. We are very happy that we are hosting this event, and I have to mention and highlight that today we are attended by more than 160 participants. So indeed, the interest is there, and I'm also expecting many questions coming from the audience. So let's begin. I would like to ask, first of all, each of you, your reading and assessment of the elections, and then, of course, I will follow up with the questions. Dear Maria, if I may start with you, please share your reflections about the reading of the preliminary results of the election and what has been the mood also in the Polish society. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning on this very sunny Monday. Yeah, I was actually in Poland for the elections. I decided to go back to my hometown and cast a vote there. First of all, we are talking about exit polls, so no result is final, and no, we have to wait for the confirmation, which will probably come tomorrow in the afternoon on Wednesday morning. The reason why is a record high voter turnout, which is a great thing. The voter turnout hasn't been that high ever. It's even higher than during the first elections in 1989. So as someone joked on Twitter, the Law and Justice Party mobilized more people than the communists 30 years ago. So many women went to the ballot, many young people. So the Polish democracy definitely has proven it's resilient and it's strong. Regarding the result, as you said, it seems that although the Law and Justice, technically speaking, won, the three opposition parties that vowed to create a coalition government seem to have the majority of the votes and the majority of the parliament. So let's see how the situation develops. Probably the president will first ask the Law and Justice, the leader of the Law and Justice, to try to create a government. Law and Justice so far, Jarosław Kaczyński and Mateusz Morawiecki said that they will try to create a new government. The narrative is the big narrative of great victory, and this is also presented in the public media. But should they fail, Donald Tusk, or it would be the Donald Tusk's turn to create a different cabinet. And this would be indeed a big quality change in Poland for Poland. I'm not saying everything will be great from day one of the new government. It is to be expected there will be political turmoil and they have a lot of unpacked and fix. But it definitely will be a breakthrough moment. And I leave it here to hear from others.
Excellent. Thank you very much, dear Maria. And indeed, we will also discuss the implications, as you mentioned. We will try to assess these implications, not only for Poland, but also for the EU. And before I give the floor to Monika, I would like to also remind to our audience that this conversation is being recorded. So I'm very happy that also later on a wider audience will have an opportunity to listen to this conversation. Dear Monika, so what is your reading of this preliminary results, the exit polls, as Maria also has correctly referred to, and she also mentioned the possibilities of the government formation and of these first attempts. And here I'm also referring to the president of Poland. So who will be, in your opinion, his, let's say, first choice? Well, initially he announced that normally it should be, in his logic, the biggest party, but will it be the case? So what are the next steps? And please also share your opinion on the preliminary results as well.
Thank you very much, Teona, and it's great to be here and to talk to you about what I would call, I think it's a historical moment for Poland. Of course, Maria is very right to stress that this is still a very preliminary, let's say, outcome, right? So something can still happen, let's put it this way. So of course, we know also from the recent case in Slovakia that the exit polls were very wrong. So let's really wait for the final count that is expected to come tomorrow. So until tomorrow afternoon, we won't be sure actually what's going on. But to your questions, Teona, and maybe perhaps let me stress one more thing that also Maria was talking about. I really think that what makes the historical moment of this election for the Polish democracy is indeed the record turnout. I think that we really haven't expected turnout to be so high. And what was really visible, I would say, over the last couple of months is how many non-governmental institutions, non-governmental organizations, also some academic institutions, private people also started campaigns that were supposed to mobilize Polish women, also Polish men, of course, to actually go and vote. And I think this is a big success of all these movements that in some way came together, and with the one aim of actually increasing the turnout and taking the democracy in the hands of the Polish people. And this is something that we can already call a success. So the next steps, of course, Maria already suggested that let's say the right to designate the government or to designate the prime minister is in the hands of the Polish president, as you also mentioned. So President Duda, who, and this is not a mystery, will of course support and is a huge supporter of the Law and Justice Party. And so we can expect from him that his first shot will be to indeed ask Law and Justice, as the party who probably will win most of the votes, to start and to try forming government. although we already know that this will most probably fail because Law and Justice has basically no coalition partner at the moment to give the party enough number of votes and enough number of seats in the Polish parliament. So then it will probably take some time. The estimations are very different, because of course we have already estimations in social media, but also by journalists, by vote experts. So we are talking about something of 1 month or perhaps even 2 months, or let's say some political hassle over that, and then the second chance, or the second move of the president will have to be asking Donald Tusk to form the government. But also there's also, let's say, a third possibility. Kaczynski mentioned, I think it was yesterday evening, so it might have been very spontaneous, that PiS can also decide to stay in the opposition. And if this were true, so we will again see it probably over the next couple of days, then the first shot will go to Donald Tusk, as Maria said, and then we will see a 3-party coalition government forming over the next couple of weeks. It won't be easy, but one thing is certain, and it was also stressed by the leaders of the other 2 opposition parties, so the New Left and the Third Way. They are convinced they want to be in the coalition with Civic Platform, so there is at least a consensus on this level. So again, it will take some weeks, but I think that we will arrive at the coalition government led by Donald Tusk, and the Law and Justice Party and Confederation that you also mentioned will form the opposition parties in the government.
Thank you very much, dear Monika, for elaborating also about the possible scenarios. And it's indeed very interesting to hear that from PiS and themselves, they strongly, let's say, emphasize that they would like to be in the opposition. And this is also very interesting, perhaps, that we will discuss what to expect from Law and Justice Party when they are in the opposition. Perhaps they will also complicate the situation, and to what extent they can. This is also something not to let's say, promise on certain areas that we will be also discussing. But before that, dear Tomasz, once again, thank you for joining us, and please also share your reading of the preliminary results of the elections, and perhaps also elaborate, if possible, about the campaign itself and the polarization and the different, especially also Ukraine factor, that I will be also asking to our other esteemed speakers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So a few points shortly at the beginning, a little bit more of optimism. So exit polls used to be very accurate in Poland in recent 2 decades. We have not only exit poll for now, we have also late poll, which was declared at 6 a.m. more or less. It's a poll based on the real results from the polling stations, which were exit poll yesterday. So it used to be even more accurate. So let's be optimistic. Secondly, the elections were not about the single policies as such, but about the basic principles, yes, of democratic governance, rule of law, decency, accountability. So that's why the question, what policies and what decisions we can expect from the Tusk government, the coalition of 3 or 4 parties, it's not so easy to answer now, but because the elections and the government is mainly, and his first priority is coming back to the real to the exact basic of democracy and the rule of law. I would say that these elections were the last call for Polish liberal democracy, because the electoral campaign was not fair. Okay, the elections were free, but the state resources used by the ruling party in the elections, state mass media, so-called public mass media, the huge money pumped by the state-owned or state-related companies into electoral campaign, it was it was misused by the huge scale, and I was afraid, as many commentators, and analysts, that the next elections, if PiS would win now, would be even more illiberal, would be more Viktor Orban like the election. So I think that it was it was the really last call for the Polish system of the liberal democracy. And you ask about the polarization. Yes, obviously for Kaczynski's party, for PiS. Okay, coming back a few years, both Kaczynski and Tusk used to play with the full polarization. It was the idea for the Polish politics for 2 decades. And now this campaign also was, yes, I would say very polarized. As it comes to the Kaczynski's peace side, it was very focused on Donald Tusk personally. So he was portrayed by state mass media as an enemy of the people and so on. To be frank, also the Donald Tusk idea for these elections were polarization, to have the single list of the opposition candidates, and to be of course the leader and hegemon of this democratic opposition list. It didn't happen. In fact, we have this 3 lists of and 4 parties, because one of them is a coalition of 2 parties. Which won elections as a bloc. So, in fact, the polarization did not succeed. Yes, because perhaps the democratic opposition has a majority, according to the exit polls, late polls today, thanks to the failure of the idea of the single list, which was hugely supported from Gazeta Wyborcza, which I work for. But at the end, these smaller parties, anti-peace, but not joining the Tusk, they were able to catch some voters which wouldn't vote for Tusk, which would stay at home, but they did vote for the alternative, but anti-peace alternative. Ukraine, of course, the bond between political strategic bond between Poland and Ukraine would stay, and it would have stayed also with Kaczynski as the winner of the election. But yes, the fact is that the peace they played with some, let's call it anti-Ukrainian or Ukraine skeptic tones at the end of the campaign, just to catch a few more percentage points of voters. I'm afraid that that peace as an opposition, which would continue to play with this anti-Ukrainian skeptic, let's call it tones. But generally, Poland would stay on this pro-Ukrainian, pro-EU accession for Ukraine line, and so on and so on. But something has been broken in this campaign. The Polish and Ukrainian people, we have very difficult story. We had this honeymoons of more than 1 year since February last year, when all these difficult issues were put aside by opposition, by the ruling party, were suppressed by the Polish church. They're quite strong in the regions in the southern eastern Poland, where the church is quite influential. It was suppressed also by the clergy. So the consensus, the silent consensus was, let's come back to all these issues of history and so on. Let's come back in 10 or 20 years. Let them win the war. Let's get them into NATO and EU, and maybe 20 years we'll discuss about what used to divide us. And that is broken. Yes, that is broken in this electoral campaign. All these issues were put to the front by peace in the recent few weeks of the electoral campaign, and it will not be able. It will not manage to put it into freezer again. So it is lost. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Tomasz, for these interesting reflections. And now I would like to go back to Maria and also ask her regarding the expectations. If we will see the coalition led by Tusk? What will be the implications? What will be the impact, positive impact on domestic politics? And here I refer, of course, in the area of rule of law, also media freedom, of course, also regarding the women's rights. But here also one point from my side that we should not perhaps forget, indeed, this the party, the third wave coalition that consists of two parties, Poland 2050 and Agrarian Polish People's Party. And we know that Poland 2050, so they are, if I may so, less enthusiastic on the prospects of the LGBTQ rights, but also they call for a referenda for the abortion rights. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but please also elaborate from your perspective the prospects on the real impact on the policy, on the rule of law area. And here also the question from our audience that goes to you, dear Maria, I think it's related to the veto rights of the president. Can he use this veto right vis-a-vis Tusk? Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, well, a lot to unpack, so I'll try to be quick. Yeah, indeed, during the campaign, all three opposition parties proclaimed it as their goal to remove the law and justice from power, according to the sort of rhetoric of the law and justice government and their coalition partners. Let's not forget about it. Solidarna Polska, for example. And the overall message of them spoiling, destroying the country, state capture, taking over state-owned companies, and undermining the rule of law. Actually, I looked what topics were important for the voters, so which topics have the most mobilizing potential. And it was, first of all, the economy, then women's rights that you mentioned as the second most important topic, then the security of the country that, of course, resonates with the war going on practically Polish border in Ukraine, and also sharing the border with Belarus, which is Putin's Russia. But then number 4 and number 5 topics were the rule of law and migration. So rule of law and the erosion of the independence of judiciary really appealed to the people, which is already a success because it's pretty abstract topic, but it really penetrated the mainstream through the media, like Gazeta, Wyborcza, by the way, or Press, so the independent media. So the questions of democracy, democratic accountability, really touched certain voters and motivated them to go. So if should we have government led by Donald Tusk, it is to be expected that they would try to walk the walk, talk the talk, and try to undo some of the reforms and changes that the law and justice government introduced in the recent years, especially when it comes to the judiciary. Just for our viewers, the Minister of Justice was Zbigniew Ziobro. He's a leader of a junior college in Partners, Sovereign Poland, and he was the motor, and this was his signature project of transforming, changing the Polish judiciary, making it, an opinion of many experts, yours truly too, make it more susceptible to political influence and less independent from. So this will be the quality change also in other areas, like normalizing the relationships with the European Union, which again is connected with the rule of law, because a disciplinary chamber at the Supreme Court is the main reason why Poland was paying a record high penalty coming from the European Court of Justice and infringement procedures, and is now also subject to the conditionality mechanism. Poland has not received its money from the resilience facility. So whatever you touch, there is a space for improvement, and this is also what all three opposition parties promised to start doing should they be given the opportunity to govern. Now I'm speeding up a little bit now, and will it be possible? Well, the law and justice has entrenched itself pretty well in the Polish institution, and them being gone from the government doesn't mean that there is no influence of party loyalists and other institutions constituents. Let's remind our viewers about the Constitutional Tribunal, for example, which is completely politicized. Supreme Court. There are people that were nominated by Law and Justice and their junior colleague partners and other vital institutions for the functioning of the country, like the National Bank, for example. So it won't be an easy task for the possible opposition government or the pro-democratic, pro-European parties forming a government on all the changes that were done. And also that brings me to the president, who was the Law and Justice candidate. This is his second term. He can't seek re-election in 2025. So it's a good question what Andrzej Duda will do. Where is his integrity? Will he be at least open for compromise, consensus with the new government on cooperating and co-governing the party, or the other way around? Will he stay loyal to his mothership, so the Law and Justice Party? And with the veto, yeah, he can do it. I mean, the Polish system is actually pretty well designed with checks and balances. So there's also a higher chamber and lower chamber, which is same in higher chamber and Senate. So we're also waiting for the Senate. The Senate also has a say in our legislative processes, and the president can either, the president has to sign each legal act for it to enter into power, and he can either veto it and send it back to Sejm for further proceedings, or he can send it to the Constitutional Tribunal. And if the Constitutional Tribunal decides that a legal proposal, like a draft act, is unconstitutional, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just gone. So I would like to just give you an idea how what a complex systems of interdependency Poland is, as every political system, and that Law and Justice has entrenched themselves in all levels of power, maybe only not at the region. But it will be also difficult for this new government to govern and to push for reforms or undoing reforms, because Law and Justice gone from the government doesn't mean Law and Justice gone.
Thank you, Maria, very much for this reflections, but also your explanation. It is indeed very useful. And I would like now to ask to Monika and Tomasz to elaborate about the program of Donald Tusk towards the EU. We know very well Donald Tusk. He has been the president of the European Council, but also the president of the European People's Party. What do you think? What will be the key elements of his program, but also approach in terms of the principles? It is clear, of course, but in terms of more, let's say, concrete proposals. And here, the question comes also from our audience, and the fact that we have received 2 or 3 questions related to EU enlargement. It also indeed highlights its salience as an issue. That's what will be the position of Poland under Tusk government regarding the future of EU enlargement. Do you think that he will be in favor of traditional enlargement, granting the member state candidate countries full membership possibility, or can we also foresee an approach towards more sectorial integration or more, let's say, phased or staged accession? This will be also interesting to hear from you in this respect. So, dear Monika, and perhaps I would also like to ask if you would like, if not, we will definitely touch upon at a later stage regarding the future of the Polish-German relations. And we have seen also in the campaign that this issue has been more or less dominant. So do you see an improvement, and to what extent? Thank you. Monika and then Tomasz.
Thank you, Teona, for these great questions. I will also refer to the questions, I think 2 of them in the Q&A, but let me just add 2 fingers to what Maria was saying about the veto of the president. She's absolutely right that the system is complicated. It is about check and balances. So, I mean, one can also argue it's actually a very good design system. And there's also one possibility that actually will not happen, but there is a possibility that the Sejm, so the lower chamber of the parliament, can override president on the veto, right? But for that to happen, it would have to be a majority of 3/5, so a qualified majority. So again, in order for this to happen, much will have to change also within the Judicial and Justice Party, and I don't think we should expect that. So yes, it will be super difficult, and I think we should be really straight on that, because I think that the expectations coming from the West are really high regarding the potential coalition government of Donald Tusk. It will be difficult for them to govern. But let's move to the optimistic, I think, side of things. Indeed, it will be a dramatic change in approach to European Union, to the neighbors, obviously. So I will refer to Germany in a bit, and I will try to be brief in order also to give Tomasz the floor. But it will be, of course, a great change. So Donald Tusk, as you all know, was the president of the European Council. So he knows the system, he knows the people. He's also known to Brussels. And this is also something that we cannot underestimate, of course, in terms of, coalition's potential of Poland. And surprisingly, perhaps the program of the civic coalition regarding EU is actually very very slim, or very not elaborated. So basically, they are announcing two major changes. First of all, it's about unblocking the funds, so both from the Solidarity Fund, but also from cohesion funds, and the funds were blocked due to the problems with judiciary reforms and the whole law and justice conflict. And then, of course, they announced, let's say, in the program that they want Poland to return to the decision-making circles of Brussels. So it is general, but I think that we can actually read much into that in terms of changing the approach. And then, because we are again talking about a potential coalition government, the third way and the left, they have much more ideas, let's say, for the European integration. And here, of course, and I think this also aligns quite nicely with the civic coalition program and approaches that are maybe not in the program, but we know of them. It is definitely strengthening of the Polish role, but it's also an unequivocal support for the enlargement of the European Union. Not only we are talking here about Ukraine and Moldova, but very much also about the Western Balkans. So this is also my attempt to answer the question from the Q&A. I think it's too early to say whether Poland will, let's say, support a full membership of these countries. I mean, for now, within the EU system, we are talking only about full membership, right? So this is the only way to do it for now. Perhaps Poland will also, let's say, join Germany and France and some other countries in ideas to develop, let's say, a more phased memberships. This is too early to say, but definitely support for enlargement is there. It will be strongly advocated by also by the left party. And then, interestingly, perhaps these parties, I mean, the small coalition parties, are also talking about a roadmap for the adoption of euros in Poland. So this is something that Donald Tusk, I think, did not mention in the campaign, but I might be wrong on that. So maybe Tomasz will correct me. I have also I could develop some assumptions that he just wanted to be careful not to antagonize potential, let's say, people in Poland who think differently. But there is a programmatic point in both of the opposition parties that they want actually euro to be adopted in Poland, not immediately, of course, but that we will be, let's say, trying to get there. And then there are also some ideas regarding green energy and the transformation towards more green economy. So again, something where I think that many member states can actually be happy for Poland to join the circle and to support these changes. And my final sentence on Germany. I think that the relationship could not be worse. I mean, we really we did a great damage. I mean, the government of Poland did a great damage to the relationship. So I think there is a great hope in Berlin, also in Paris, but especially in Berlin, that something will change. And definitely it will be a different approach. But again, I think that we also cannot underestimate that the media propaganda, Tomasz were referring to that, to this, also, let's say, changed the public opinion, at least partially the public opinion towards Germany. So Tusk and his government will be definitely trying to be a reliable partner for Germany, but also Germany and other Western European countries. I think it's also high time they recognize this shift that we are talking about, and they don't really see the shift happening now towards more attention to Central Eastern Europe. But I think that they will be really good advice to try to integrate Poland into all the initiatives that are going on, in order not to, and this is my final sentence, in order not to make the impression that you know, Tusk is just aligning its interests with Germany. It's about bringing Polish voice to the European mainstream, and the voice has to be heard. And this is, I think, the only way we can do it. But I'm optimistic on this regard, because I think that the Western European countries have waited long enough for a more constructive Polish approach.
Thank you, Monika, for this very interesting reflections and comments. Before I go to Tomasz, very quick follow-up question, since you've been speaking about Germany, and here also in my mind comes the ongoing discussions about the possibility of the qualified majority voting. If we know, and if you could, in this respect, very briefly respond, whether Tusk and his coalition partners are or will be in favor of such a move, also to ease the ways for the future of enlargement, but also in general for the operationality of the European Union. But of course, there are also other arguments as a let's say cons, but so I'm not going to elaborate. So floor is yours.
Yeah. Briefly, so I think in terms of the programs of the Poland 2050 and the left, they announced that they want the European Union to be strengthened and more integrated. And I'm reading this as the support for the qualified majority voting. I'm not sure about Tusk, but I think coming from the European institutions, I think that he's well aware of the fact that with an enlarged European Union, unanimity will not longer be possible also in EU foreign and security affairs. So I would say he will support it, but perhaps Tomasz has a different opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Tomasz, the floor is yours. Do you agree with Monika in this respect? But also please elaborate on my previous questions regarding the EU.
Yes, so starting from the QMV, so Tusk, as the president of the European Council, was a strong defender of the unanimity in the strategic issues and the foreign policy. Even though the EU has very weak common policy, it's more about the coordination. But as far as, yes, I suppose he'll be the prime minister of the coalition government, but he himself and his party would be against the going to the QMV in these areas in which the QMV is not binding now. So it's mainly foreign policy. He used to be the strong defender of this consensus-seeking approach and unanimity as a Polish prime minister, and then in the European Council. The European Council is a feature of the people carrying this body, because also Charles Michel is very skeptical. Also in his open public declarations, very skeptical about these ideas raised by Germany and France. And I think that the Tusk people, even in recent weeks, when in September the new debate was refreshed by this report of 12 experts under the umbrella of German and French governments, even in September, some Tusk people in on the record remarks distanced themselves from this QMV, broadening the QMV rule in the EU. But we'll see. Obviously, the coalition partners, the left and its third or one component of this third way, which is a part of the Renew Europe group in the European Parliament, they would be more ready, but still Tusk will be the dominating figure of this government. So on Ukraine, yes, the Polish strategic aim used to be to get the Ukraine to the EU as quick as possible. It was totally unrealistic before the February last year. Now it's as soon as possible, but it still means more than 10 years, I think. But obviously, Poland would push for it if the gradual accession, sectoral accession, is the way to the full accession. Yes, but not as a substitute or alternative to the full membership for Ukraine. Full, yes, even Polish membership is full and not full at the same time, because I tend to underline that the Eurozone is yes, that is a full membership of the EU. But while pushing for the EU accession talks and shortening this EU perspective for Ukraine and Western Balkans as well, the point of the tension with the EU partners will be this treaty change ideas, or even using passerelle to weaken the unanimity rule in many areas, because Tusk wouldn't be ready to. And Polish public opinion is not ready, I think. Yes, even if the QMV in foreign policy, what it is about the sanctions and some declarations. Yes, something is getting interesting as a declaration on the Middle East conflict now, but still it's not about the strategic decisions. But for Polish, even my readers, for Polish public opinion, QMV, the perspective to be outvoted by France, by Germany, as it comes to the foreign policy. It would be very difficult to digest, but still there will be long negotiations. So maybe perhaps at the end of the process there will be some compromise. But Tusk will be very pushing brakes. The Tusk government would be pushing brakes as it comes to this EU system reforms. Coming back to Duda and rule of law. Unblocking the recovery and recovery money, the recovery fund for Poland, would be very tedious, very hard work for the government, because there are legally binding conditions, milestones, rule of law milestones put in the Polish recovery plan, voted by the council, and the present legal system is in a breach with these conditions, and it can be changed only by the new legislation. There is a law negotiated with the Commission almost a year ago, stuck in the Constitutional Tribunal, and the pushing the new legislation with the veto power by President Duda seems very complex. So it's not a very easy way to unblock this money. President can veto every law except for the budgetary law, so defunding of the state mass media. It is a way which has been discussed by the opposition before the election, but to change the judiciary system, we'll see. It will be very complex. More broadly on Poland and Brussels and the EU, obviously predictability, rule of law, constructive approach, but do not expect Donald Tusk as a prime minister to be the easy player as it comes to the Green Deal. It is a very expensive, extremely expensive policy for the Polish economy, and every Polish prime minister used to be skeptical. Tusk as a prime minister, he was sabotaging the system of the green transformation in the EU. Then he changed. He admitted that he went through the conversion, green conversion, as a president of the European Council. But still, the Poland under every government would be pushing for money, more financial compensation from Brussels to get the green transition. Migration, obviously, the Tusk government would respect the EU law, which was not the case with PiS government, but still Tusk, as a president of the European Council, in his public declarations was very critical, highly critical about the relocation ideas. So if it is voted and adopted by the EU, by the European Parliament, by the Council, it will be respected. But Tusk, we do not expect him to be enthusiastic about it. So not on the Green Deal, not on the QMV in foreign policy, not on this obligatory solidarity system in the migration politics. Yes, that's all for yes.
That's very interesting, Tomasz. Yes, really, thank you so much for unpacking this.
Yes, and Germany, if I may add, and Germany, obviously, this is Germanophobic tricks used by PiS. It would end, but also it would be a mistake for the German government, German politics to think And while speaking to the diplomats in Brussels in recent months, I detected some thinking that with a liberal democratic government, Poland would stop be critical about the Germany being too soft on Russia sanctions and so on. So Tusk would continue, this policy of pushing and even bashing sometimes Germany on being too easy on Russia, for example, if it would be the case in the future, in the forthcoming months.
Excellent. Thank you so much, dear Tomasz, once again. Dear Maria, if I may ask you perhaps one question related to the judicial reform. So if the coalition government led by Tusk, and this is a question comes from our participant, one of our participants, whether we should expect or not, what can be expected when it comes to its impact on Article 7 procedure. So what will be in this respect the expectation, and perhaps a second question also I'm reading now from the participants' questions. So we assume that Tusk will immediately stop supporting Orban's abuse of the rule of law, allowing Article 7 procedures against Hungary to advance. Is that right? What do you think, dear Maria?
Yeah, so I will start with judicial reforms and what a difficult mammoth task it would be to undo them, because Poland is now, well, it's a palimpsest, it's a chaos, it's a legal chaos, what has been done to the Polish system of judiciary, and not only when it comes to the Constitutional Tribunal, Supreme Court, the organization of ordinary courts, but also the self-governance of judges. And so not only many laws were passed, some of them even unconstitutional, but yet signed by the president, but also we have people who have been nominated and appointed with not in line with the procedure. So there's a good question how to overcome and undo the reforms and how to bring back the legal order. So I don't have an answer right now. One thing is undoing it, and then the other thing, it will be the political battle for undoing the transformation of the judiciary, because as my colleagues here already were mentioning, the Law and Justice will not give up, and it is there to stay. Regarding Article 7, the Article 7 potential was deterrence, and was the potential of exercising pressure on countries not to break EU law and in a drastic way, because of the sanctions that may come, namely being stripped of the voting rights. So you can see there is a maybe systemic or political weakness within the Article 7, namely that countries can not only protect each other and vetoing the Article 7, but also before that the Commission not necessarily wants to at all go this path, because then it's a problem with other voting on the budget or other important voting in the EU. So Article 7 has proven, a long story short, toothless tiger. Also, if the government in Poland changes, it is not impossible that Orban won't find other allies, right? We've just had elections in Slovakia where Mr. Fico has called Orban a great leader who protects the interests of a country. And it's opportunistic alliances that can come up at the EU level that will be mutually supporting. So I don't think the problem is with the tools that the EU has to execute sanctions, let's put it this way, for breaches of the EU law and discipline countries. It's the politics of it all, to use the existing tools with full force. Same for conditionality mechanism, and the same for Ursula von der Leyen hesitating really a long time and with reacting properly to first the Hungarian case and then the Polish case. So looking for dialogue formats and conciliatory measures with sitting to the table with people, and I mean the Law and Justice and Fidesz government, who first of all never had the intention to undo their illiberal and democratic autocratic reforms that they were implementing in the country. So, you know, there is no balance in such conversations. So first of all, consequence in defending EU law. But what I just wanted to quickly go back to, what will Tusk do at the EU level? You know, there always will be conflicts of interests, and as Tomasz and Monika already mentioned, Poland has a particular logic when it comes to climate action, energy policy, migration, very unpopular topic in Poland. But there will always be conflicts of interest. But you know what will change? The way how to go about them. Law and Justice was presenting the EU and the country for their domestic audiences as the last boogeyman and blaming the EU for all their misfortune and mismanagement. And it was an openly hostile government to the EU. Maybe they were not announcing Polexit because of the persisting EU enthusiasm in the Polish society, but the quality of this discussion and the quality of contact and negotiations, and which the quality of the relationship between Warsaw and Brussels will now improve. And this is, I think, also something to be happy about. Maybe not, it is not to be expected that Tusk will now follow, I think he will be standing for Polish interests, whatever it is, standing in a constructive way, looking for a consensus and synergies, and not also for immediate political gains. So there is hope.
Thank you so much, dear Maria, indeed. And dear Monika, would you like to perhaps react on some of the comments that Maria has shared? But especially, I would like to ask the solution, if we can expect a swift solution for the current controversy within the judiciary about the neo-judges. So this is a question coming from our participants. So what will be the way forward here? And perhaps also, dear Tomasz, then I would like to also ask you, and dear Monika, of course, you two, it will be very interesting to hear your opinion on that regarding the tensions when it comes with Ukraine, and the agriculture has been one of the issues during the campaign as well. And in this respect, is it going to disappear? Is it going to? Are we going to face a new solution that will work for all? So, what will be the position from your perspective of Tusk's coalition in this respect? And again, I'm reflecting about the coalition partners, especially the Agrarian People's Party, but also another party, Poland 2050, that also have been rather demanding when it comes to the protectionist measures to a certain extent. So please, the floor is yours, dear Monika, and followed by Tomasz.
Thank you, Teona. I will be brief because we're running out of time and there are many questions. So to the question on the neo-judges, you know, Maria is the leading expert on rule of law, on rule of justice. I wanted to say no, on the issue of the rule of law. So I wouldn't dare to challenge her on that. And I think that she is totally right. What I can just say after talking with some people from Civic Platform is that they really don't know yet. I think it is really complicated, as Maria said, and the system is basically turned into a kind of a double system of judiciary in Poland. So it will take time. I don't have an answer to the question, but perhaps on a broader point, also linking your questions, Teona, on Ukraine and the Polish interest, with one question from the chat on the European army, whether Tusk will support something as the European army. Let me say that in my opinion, I think that the security priorities of Poland will remain the same. So we are fighting a war with Russia, of course, indirectly via Ukraine. But I mean, the Russian threat has been, I mean, there was an alignment if it comes to that among all the parties basically of the Polish political scene. So I think the support for Ukraine won't change. And of course, now we heard Morawiecki, you know, let's say, weakening the support a bit, but indeed Poland was a strong supporter to Ukraine, even under the government of the Law and Justice. So this will certainly be continued by the civic platform or by the civic coalition government. But on the security issues, actually, what I wanted to say is that NATO is still the most important partner if it comes to territorial security for Poland. And although I do think that the approach to EU, let's say, security initiatives will be a bit different, so I think that Poland will be much more active in CSDP operations and in joint procurement, for example. Still, NATO will be the most important partner. And if we are talking about creating a European army, I don't see Polish government supporting that. What I see the government supporting are talks with the EU, how to strengthen the European pillar within NATO. But this is, of course, actually not so different of what the German government is actually now arguing for. So I think that we will still be seeing Poland as a very strong security partner, but primarily if we are talking about territorial defense within NATO, not so much within the EU. But I absolutely agree with Maria on the point that the approach will be different, and Poland will start talking to partners about challenges and problems, and will try to find common solutions. So I talked probably for way too long, so I will leave the Ukraine question to Tomasz because I think he can do it better than me.
Yes, on the army, I can agree that Poland would remain within the EU the hawk of Atlanticism. Yes, European pillar of the NATO, which means US leadership. Obviously, while being more constructive as it comes to this common procurement and all EU defense policy, but mainly on the defense producers level. As it comes to the agriculture and Ukraine, it will be interesting because it's not easy for Tusk himself, for his future coalition partners. In fact, he was the first already last year to address in public the grievances and dissatisfaction of Polish farmers with the Ukrainian imports. It was the Tusk party in European Parliament in June who voted against the extension of the full liberalization of the trade between Ukraine and EU. It's counterintuitive, but peace they did vote for in June, and Tusk party voted because of the agriculture voters against. So yes, the hope is that the problem will be solved because of this constructive approach to dialogue with the European Commission, to getting some money for more compensation for Polish farmers harmed or touched or losing some money because of this Ukrainian imports. But I wouldn't expect the full reversal of this embargo focused approach of Poland as it comes to the Ukraine agriculture exports to the EU.
Thank you very much, dear Tomasz. And perhaps I think we only have 3 minutes, and I would like to still give 1 minute to each of you for your, let's say, last sentences, a few phrases. How do you see what are the key, let's say, issues that Brussels should be watching, and in general your own reflections regarding the prospects of relations with the EU under Tusk's government. So, Maria, 1 minute.
1 minute. I think what is good is that this election showed that people are still pro-European despite the ongoing anti-European propaganda, and election outcome of the most anti-European party, Confederacja, the far right, was a complete disaster, which is also great news, 6-7%. So I think this is, let's see which government is coming and what will happen in the future. But despite all efforts to paint the EU in ugly grey colors, the Poles seem to remain pro-European and Euro enthusiastic. And this is a good start for relaunching, hopefully, the relationship with Brussels.
Thank you. Monika, what do you think?
I will just smoothly follow up on Maria's words and say that it is also very good news for the EU and for all the other countries who are in danger, let's say, of their governments being taken over by illiberal parties and right-wing parties. So I think that Poland, actually, the Polish case shows that there is still hope for liberal democracy, and we shouldn't give it up, obviously. And I think this is also, let's say, well, I mean, it will certainly help the European Parliament that will be elected in June 2024, let's say, to be a more democratic government. Because if the counterfactuals actually would have happened and peace would have won the elections, then I think we will have been facing a real danger of the anti-liberal or illiberal parties taking over the European Parliament.
Thank you. And Tomasz?
Yes, I think that the EU or the rest of the EU and the Brussels EU institutions should expect the Polish government, for which the prominence, visibility, outspokenness on many issues is not enough, which would demand also the influence on decisions. Paradoxically, it was quite often quite easy to ignore peace government because they were against everything. So to outvote them or to say that you are not negotiation partners was politically easier, and it will not be easy at all with the Tusk government. He would, and his government would demand a say on the EU reforms, on the EU funds, on the EU approach to Ukraine accession. He will not be the easy partner for Brussels. Constructive, but not easy, and somehow more difficult than peace, than Kaczynski's government, which just the rest EU could ignore and explain to themselves that, you know, they are anti-EU Eurosceptics, so we should sideline them.
Thank you so much. And I think that with this positive note, or I would say more rational positive note, I think we would like to close our event. And I would like to thank you so much, dear speakers, dear Tomasz, dear Maria, dear Monika, for joining us this morning, but also to our audience for your very interesting questions. And indeed, I think as Tomasz was mentioning, it has been the last call for the Polish democracy. And also from Brussels, we are also very happy to see that such a big turnover of the voters, more than 73%. Indeed, this is also what perhaps we are aiming or looking for upcoming EP elections this summer. But for this, I would like to, for this moment, thank you once again to everybody, and I wish you a very nice, pleasant continuation of the day. And here at the EPC, we will definitely continue watching, writing, and also following up on the results, but also on the developments in Poland, in the EU, but also beyond the EU with you. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.